We were a very, very, well-oiled crew shooting a film together, and then this horrible event happened.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. It appears the first legal shifts and gyres have begun, possibly from Halyna's husband's side, as this 3-page petition titled "For Appointment of Personal Representation under Wrongful Death Act," as it demonstrates. So in this episode we're going to go through this 3-page petition, and then we're going to talk about some things that flow out from that. But I've heard someone saying, you take so long to get to the point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a link to the petition. You can read it yourself, and I suggest you stop the video right here, and then you can kind of go and read the petition yourself. And then you don't need to listen to my opinions, and you don't need to care about my lack of expertise, right? So right now, stop the video. Go to the link in the description. You can read that yourself. Okay. I'm also getting quite a lot of criticism about how I pronounce things. And so if that is really important to you, you're probably on the wrong channel. If you don't care about the fact that I've written 101 books and you think that I don't have any expertise and it really doesn't matter, you really shouldn't be here. And I also don't want you to be here if that is all that you can kind of care about. If my opinion or my interpretation or my analysis means absolutely nothing and all you want to do is get to the information, then rather just go to the original and read it yourself and form your own opinion about that. And I'm going to start clamping down on unnecessary insulting remarks. If you want to remain on this channel and you want to insist on insulting, you simply won't be allowed to comment in future. Okay. So glad that is out the way. Now, I hope you guys who are so unhappy, I hope you're not here anymore. And don't let the door hit you on the way out. So in terms of this particular story, it actually came out on Deadline. Deadline's the only news source that has dealt with it. And it actually came out quite a while ago. It came out on January 28th. No one has yet sort of spoken about it. So it's still, in a sense, breaking news. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So I'm not actually going to narrate for you the entire 3-page petition. There's not really much that we don't know. It just deals with things we do already know, that an incident occurred, when it occurred, and who was the victim. We know all of that kind of stuff. I want to bring your attention to point number 8. And running close to the bottom of page 2, it refers directly to Matthew Hutchins, Halyna's husband, as well as Aldous Hutchins, Halyna's 9-year-old son, as, quote, supporting, end quote, this petition. And they also have been provided, according to this document, with a copy of the petition. Further, Panish, Shia, Boyle and Ravapudi, a law firm we saw mentioned in the media almost 2 months ago by the New York Post, by the LA Times and TMZ. That law firm is also mentioned, I think it's LA based, is also mentioned in the petition as that retained by Halyna's spouse and son. I'm not certain why this petition isn't filed by them directly. I suspect the petitioner to the First Judicial District of Santa Fe County, I suspect that the petitioner's got to be resident and that is legally domiciled in Santa Fe, and the petitioner's law firm, McGinn, Montoya, Love and Curry, are New Mexico-based personal injury lawyers. The partners in the firm appear to be staffed by a majority of women, which is quite interesting. Also given that in this case the deceased is also a 42-year-old woman. So I think what's quite interesting, legally speaking, to this case compared to the others is the scale of the crime scene. In terms of people present, you might say the crime scene is just the church, or it's the church and the prop truck. And that all we really need to know is how did a live round get on set. That's the beginning and end of it. But the reality is the scale of the crime scene is much bigger. And you could also argue that it doesn't start and end in the church or even on October 21st. It is the entire production. It is what happened in terms of those incidents, the discharges prior, right? But I think the real scale of it is actually the number of people, the crew that were involved, right? Bear in mind, it was also crew that were inside the church, and who was inside the church was a factor of some other members of the crew not being there. And so you've got this real labyrinth, kind of like a spider's web, where you pull on one strand and it seems to affect all the other strands. So, realistically, the crew on Rust was close to 90 individuals, over 200 by another count, I think, if one adds in extras. But this means there may be quite a complicated setup of lawsuits from various interests. And I'm not sure if Hannah is being sued directly or indirectly, but it certainly appears she isn't at this point. In other words, she's not being sued. If she was, I'm not sure how much anyone could really go after.
This idea that my client grabbed the gun off of a prop cart and handed it to Mr. Baldwin absolutely did not happen. So whether or not he handed the firearm directly to Alec Baldwin at that moment, or whether the armor handed it directly to Alec Baldwin at that moment, doesn't really matter, because he didn't load it. He's not responsible.
Okay. So that was the voice of Linda Torrico, the assistant director, Dave Halls' lawyer, and she's basically saying Dave Halls has got nothing to do with this. The fact that he handed the gun to Alec Baldwin is absolutely irrelevant. He wasn't the one who loaded it. So, and that is not really, I don't really accept that in a legal sense. I think, and this is why I say it's not just one person who's at fault here. It is a string of liabilities in a way, because of the way that the crew is structured. There are certain protocols in terms of the crew. There are certain protocols in terms of safety, and these apply to everybody. And so you also have people with varying levels of responsibility towards one another and towards the production. And so can you see legally can get quite sticky. The other thing that's interesting with what Hall said was that he did actually check the weapon, or kind of that he half checked it, that he saw 3 rounds. So, his own lawyer saying that if he didn't check it, it didn't really matter. It's not really legally sound, is it? And this legal argument is very important, and I have actually studied law. I studied law for 3 years at university. Those who are really preoccupied with my pronunciation and who want me to just get to the point probably don't know or care about that. But it is necessary to know something about how the mechanism of the law works, particularly in a complicated case like this. And it's also very important to consider, what is actually going on in the minds of the lawyers and the lawsuits, because you might say the person most responsible in this case is Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. If that is your legal argument, well, what are you going to get if you win? If you go after Hannah and you win, Hannah isn't very wealthy, right? So, but what I'm trying to say is, even if Hannah is culpable in some way, right? Let's say legally she did something wrong, and then you sued her. You're not going to get anything for all of that effort. You're not going to get much compensation. You might win, but you're not going to win anything. On the other hand, if you went after Alec Baldwin, who has a totally different position in terms of the movie, he's the originator of it. He is was involved in the script. He's the producer. He's the lead actor. He was at the center of things. He was the person who, I don't want to say pulled the trigger, because that's a legal question, but who was holding the gun when it went off. And so he's really at the center of things. And of course, he's worth $60 million. Interestingly, Fox News put up this article about Baldwin's net worth on October 28th last year, barely a week after the incident, almost as if this was like the next question. How much is Alec Baldwin worth, right? And according to the article, quote, a large portion of Baldwin's $60 million comes from his time on the hit NBC sitcom 30 Rock, where he was estimated to be raking in a massive $300,000 per episode paycheck. end quote. Now compare that to the sort of meager $1,400 he was paid per appearance on Saturday Night Live. And this is also according to Fox News, quote, Baldwin owns a farmhouse in the Hamptons in Long Island, New York, and a Greenwich Village penthouse in Manhattan, end quote. Baldwin purchased the farmhouse for just under $12 million in 1995. It's actually quite beautiful. In 2012 and 2013, Baldwin acquired 2 additional units in a Greenwich Village building, where he also has a penthouse for a combined price tag of almost $3.5 million. That is excluding the penthouse itself. And so I think a lot of the lawyers who are involved in this from the various lawsuits are eyeing these kind of cauldrons of treasure in terms of what they're going after in this particular case. And, you know, if you think about Alec Baldwin, he's recently a father to 6 young children, and he really has, I think, some serious legal issues to deal with at this time, and they could be quite ruinous. You know, it's possible that he is able to field an excellent defense, but it's also possible that he could lose a lot given the stakes and given what has happened. So at last count, there were 3 lawsuits from the scriptwriter, Mamie Mitchell, also from Serge Svetnoy, Halyna's friend, from Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, that's the 3rd, and now the 4th is this wrongful death suit. Add those together and it could end up being a pretty penny. Now, something that I neglected to mention in terms of the dismissal of the suit, that it was Alec Baldwin's response to the scriptwriter's lawsuit. Something that is actually mentioned in that is that you should go after, I think it's workers' compensation. So what is advised in that response is that Mamie Mitchell seeks compensation from the kind of insurance that has been allotted. And that is likely to be a lesser number, whatever it is. And so I've heard some lawyers talking about this case, and what they're saying is, I think the insurance will cover some of the damages that is possibly being faced, but certainly not all of it. Anyway, in conclusion, what we're seeing here is Halyna Hutchins for the first time sort of coming forward. You know, if you take it November, December, January, it's kind of 3.5 months later, he's sort of making his move. He's got a lot of the information that has come out, and it looks like the wrongful death suit is now, the petition has been put forward, but it looks like that suit is absolutely imminent. Watch this space for more details. So I'm not going to take it further than that. I do just want to mention that for those who haven't heard, every Wednesday at either 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's time dependent, I'll be doing a members-only analysis. Really fascinating. Those who've already watched it have given really good feedback based on the research of an art historian on the last 70 days of Vincent van Gogh's life and dealing with his mysterious death. And we're going to challenge art history from a true crime perspective. It really is interesting. I've written a book on Vincent van Gogh. I've traveled to the area. And so this promises to be something that is going to challenge your knowledge and your perceptions and your impressions of the world-famous artist. And then finally, new information has come out. There's been new photos of Barry Morphew that have been released. And so I'll be dealing with that in a future episode. So if you're interested in the Morphew case, his wife's remains were never found. It's a Colorado-based hunter, an ex-baseball star. That case has been slated to go to trial, I believe, May 2022. So lots happening legally this year in true crime. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.